Welcome to Blockchain Bytes. This is a new format where I plan on covering different topics in small little snippets. You can think about it as a lexicon, as me opining on different topics in short little bites that cover it, not from A to Z like our main read-throughs, but more like cocktail party answers, just to make them quick, interesting, and more broad. And here's just an example. It comes in from my Twitter feed, and honestly, this is a pet peeve of mine, not a pet peeve. This is a kind of tweet that makes me furious, and it comes from an employee at a central bank. And the tweet goes like this. One of the myths of the crypto world is that there's a limited supply. And this might be true for one kind of coin like Bitcoin, where there's a 21 million hard cap, but this isn't true for crypto overall, because you can just basically copy easily, without limit, all kinds of new coins, and this cuts into the old coin value and causes a form of inflation and undercuts the currency. That's the tweet. That was kind of a rough translation. And this tweet just gets me so upset because how can someone from a central bank, be so unaware of what the core technology is, like what we're talking about here in this space, and then go tweet about it in public? It just shows this arrogance where you go out and you post your opinion in the public forums, even you have no idea what you're talking about. But this is an argument that I've heard a few times, which is, what do you mean there's a limited 21 million supply or hard cap for Bitcoin or for Ethereum or this like that? There's a bazillion different cryptocurrencies, and so there's limitless inflation, and it's never ending, and there's no such thing as a hard cap supply and scarcity in crypto. You can just infinitely replicate every coin, and if you don't like Bitcoin, just create your own Bitcoin. If you don't like Ethereum, create your own Ethereum. And this argument, it just fails mainly on two levels. One is first level thinking, and the second is second level thinking. Really just fails. And here's where it fails. So first of all, not all cryptocurrencies are created equal. Just because they're called cryptocurrencies doesn't mean that they're all the same thing. Just like not all shirts are the same thing, and not all stocks are the same thing. Yes, in general, if you're in the stock market, then all stocks compete for the same supply of capital. And so if you have more stocks, an infinite amount of stocks, then there is more competition for capital, and it does slightly on the margin drain capital from the rest of the market. And this is actually what happens when there are IPOs that come to market. When there are lots of IPOs or SPACs that come public, it drains a little bit of liquidity away from other stocks in the market. And in that sense, they do compete. But really, they're not the same stock. Apple is very different from Uber, which is very different from Procter & Gamble. They're not the same thing. Just because you have a stock and it trades and they're called stocks and they have the same umbrella term doesn't make them the same thing. Apple gets bought by one kind of audience, Procter & Gamble gets bought by another type of audience, and the companies themselves do completely different things. The stocks trade completely differently. Just because something is called a cryptocurrency does not make it the same thing. Bitcoin and Ethereum are completely different. Solana and Ethereum, very different. And that's not to talk about all the other kinds of cryptocurrencies out there. And that's the other thing. If they are in the same market and at the margin there is capital that goes from one to the other, that's only the case when the new IPOs, quote unquote, coming to the market are worth something. If crappy companies come to the market, they don't take liquidity away from good companies. That only happens when there's something of substance in those new IPOs. In 2021, the end of 2021, when crappy SPACs were brought to market, they didn't raise that much money because everyone else stopped saying this is worthwhile to invest in. And they kept their money in Apple, and they kept their money in Microsoft and Facebook. And the same thing is true in crypto. When some crappy ass ICO, IDO whatever you want to call it, comes to market, what's called shitcoins, no one cares. No one cares unless it's super, super on the margin and it doesn't affect the market as a whole in any meaningful way, which is why the Bitcoin market cap, the Ethereum market cap have stayed so dominant over the years. And the only projects that gain traction are real projects, real companies. Just like any other company gets funding, and that doesn't take away from existing companies. So that's number one. And that's kind of on a macro level. On a micro level, even if you zoomed in and said, yeah, we can just copy Bitcoin, we can just copy Ethereum, there's, they're open source, they're publicly hard forkable. Go ahead, do it, try it. People have tried. The code does not make the blockchain valuable. It's the social consensus. It's the network effect around specific blockchains. That's what matters, not the code. You can try and fork, in a different world, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is all open source. It's all publicly available. Go ahead. Go set up your own website. Call it wikipedia1.org and have the same content. And you know what? It won't work. No one is going to be searching for wikipedia1.org. Google hasn't crawled wikipedia1.org. The competition with wikipedia.org will wipe wikipedia1.org off the map, even though you can fork it at no cost and create your own domain. It doesn't matter. It's not the code that matters. It's the social consensus. And this tweet by someone who has a head on his shoulders just shows that this person has not thought through what makes a blockchain, what makes a cryptocurrency valuable. They're not just some speculative asset. They represent a real community that generates real value from it. It's a social consensus. It can't so easily be forked ad infinitum. So next time someone at a party that you're at or at your family dinner table says, wait a second, it doesn't matter. I can just copy paste Bitcoin. I'll just make my own Bitcoin and I'll call it Yoshcoin. Now you have your answer. 2 reasons why it doesn't work. The first, that just because you have a stock market, at the end of the day, it's a market of stocks and they're not all the same. The same is true in crypto. And the second is that it's a social consensus that cannot easily be copy and pasted. It's a network effect. So this was our first blockchain bite. Started with a pet peeve that just drove me crazy today, and I had to kind of get this out the door. I think next time I'll make it a little bit more structured, a little bit more educational, and hopefully we can kind of create a real lexicon or an audio dictionary even of different terms in blockchain.